What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you, Jimmy Smith, Ryan Moody, our MMA show. Here to talk about a card we didn't break down, but it turned in to a really good card. UFC Fight Night, Figueiredo versus Benavidez 2. A very interesting rematch based on how the first one went down, but I didn't see a lot of hype coming into that. But these were statement fights. The first fight, however, it's funny because it's been a few days since I've watched it. Must not have left, a big statement on me, Jimmy. Askarov versus Pantoja, a decision. This was an underdog win, number one, but it just felt flat. When I was watching this, if you go back and listen to our original show, when we start to talk about Fight Island or fights with no crowds, we talked about flat performances. And this one really reminded me of that. I'm all for underdog wins, but this one just didn't make the statement you would expect it to starting out a main card.
Well, also when the belt's on the line for the main event, and I said this when I broke this down post-fight for ESPN, that I said, look, that's usually the audition, right? You're 125ers, you're in the top 5, the belt's on the line, a great performance, and you might be next in line. First off, I thought Pantoja won the first 2 rounds. It was close. I thought Pantoja won the first 2 rounds. I thought Askarov won the third. But you're right. But neither guy really kind of put their stamp on the fight. Neither guy fought like, man, if I whoop some ass here, I get a title shot. And I think they would have. I think the winner of this fight, had it been dramatic, had it been a great finish, same division as the belt's on the line, you're fresh in fighters' minds and fans' minds, you could have been next. And I didn't feel like either fighter, even though Askarov won the fight, made that statement. And that's surprising considering what was on the line.
Yeah, you got to plant the flag when you can plant the flag and say, this is what I'm coming to take, and it's going to be mine. And unfortunately, it did not go down that way. But I will say, for all those things, Ariane Lipski came in a little bit unheralded and dropped two of her fights since debut. Had some step-down opponents as well. But, really solid performances back-to-back and is gaining some fans. She came in and did a brutal knee bar. I wish the ref would have been a little closer on this, but she was, and I guess because she was so patient, she got it set up, got the leverage, got the position right, and then just sunk it, even though she was in kind of a compromised position, and she's really put 2 back-to-back performances in that are brutal, and they look, that's her nickname, the Queen of Violence, right? So, to be honest, that was what I wanted to see on the first one. That's what you want to have fighters come in and do, take advantage of an opportunity, try to right the wrongs if you've had them, and clearly she needs a step up in competition, of course, but she's going on the right path now.
Right. If Pantoja had gotten that against Askarov, probably next for the title, right? Some knee bar that makes everybody cringe who's watching it, that freaks everybody, because everybody did. I did. Also, you're a blue belt, yeah?
Yes.
Yes. When you start doing leg locks, write this down. Calf slicers are slower than knee bars or heel hooks. They work. You can catch people in calf slicers and stuff like that. You are working against the biggest muscles in the human body. They take a while to work. Someone can fight out of a calf slicer for a little bit before they tap. A knee bar like that you rip to the ceiling, you ain't fighting that. That's it. End of the road, right? So it was one of those things where Lipski was actually in a calf slicer, but Carolina couldn't finish it in time before she got ripped with a knee bar. And that's a race you don't want to get into. Knee bar versus calf slicer. It was the wrong way to go, but one of those cringy submissions where everyone, kind of like, you look away from the screen for a second. That was one of those, and fans remember that.
Yeah, with a calf slicer, sometimes a novice fan can look at it and say, what happened there? You look at that knee and you know immediately, like, oh, okay, your leg doesn't bend that way. Yeah. That's going to hurt. Moving up the card, well, this to me was fight of the night. Really, 100%. Super excited. Yeah, Fiziev versus Diakese. Obviously, we've seen a lot of these two coming in, but this was a dominant win. Both guys are just next level when it comes to their versatility and their striking. But Fiziev brought pressure. And he brought power to Diakese. And you look at kind of flashes of defense from Diakese, but it was never enough to be a real threat or sway the judges. I will say, we don't give it credit enough, but this was great matchmaking. But I really thought the body kicks in the beginning were what set the tone of this fight. Yeah, he knew right away, guard down, and then everything was kind of nullified from there. And we really haven't seen that happen to Diakese, where somebody just stands in front of him, takes everything, and that that next level threat just isn't there. It was kind of weird seeing it play out.
You know what's weird is it's one of those fights, and this happens in life, period, when, I don't know if it's good or bad, when you don't really do anything wrong. You're just up against a better guy. Diakese didn't look bad. He had good kickboxing. He was accurate with his strikes. He was powerful. He just wasn't as powerful, as accurate as Fiziev was. He just, it was like Diakese fought a really good fight. And Fiziev just ate everything he threw, checked brilliantly, had good defense, pulled that matrix move where he leaned back off the kick. That is high-level Muay Thai stuff. And he ran into a better kickboxer. A really good kickboxer in Diakese, had a good performance. You could argue even great, even better than good. And Fiziev was just better. I mean, to me, Diakese can leave kind of with his head held high. Like, look, I fought a great fight. That's why it was fight of the night. And it just wasn't quite good enough. Fiziev is just a level better. And that's exceptional considering Diakese is an excellent kickboxer.
I think that performance beats 60% of the division that Diakese has for sure.
Yeah, 60, 70%. He at least outpoints. He doesn't have huge power, but at least out kickboxes him on that night. And Fiziev was just better.
All right, co-main event, and this really was a co-main event. I kind of had to take a step back and understand how far you have a guy like Kelvin Gastelum fall. But he gets Jack Hermansson. This is a bounce-back fight for both of these guys, kind of off, I don't want to say high-pressure losses, but they were in situations they were supposed to get the win. This one actually ends early with a heel hook, and it's a big setback now for KG, and it's a tough division. And this is going to be, multiple fights to get back to where he is. This is a stacked division. I mean, this 3 or 4 years now, this has been just an absolute murderer's row. You see, I think, in my opinion, a lot of guys come out of 185 to go up to 205 to get out of this Shark Tank and be able to go contend for titles. You look at back-to-back of 3 losses in a row, and it's a tough way out. And for Hermansson, depending on how things play out, and we're going to break down the card going forward, this could be him in the top 5. He maybe could be, if he even needs a win, to be in title contention now.
The issue is, this is the first time in this 3-fight skid where he just got beat. He just got submitted. It was fast. He fell into a heel hook in a little over a minute. Darren Till was a close decision. A lot of people thought he won that fight. Israel Adesanya, very, very close. Fight of the year candidate? Absolute war. And he was on the downside. But razor thin losses to Darren Till and Israel Adesanya. And then Hermansson just smokes him. Beautiful heel hook transition. Couldn't roll out of it. And it's over in just over a minute. 18 seconds. That's the craziness of it. Is when you look at the skid, it kind of reminds me of Chris Weidman. When he had his skid at 185, he beats Vitor Belfort, he looks unbeatable, and then he loses to Rockhold, Romero, and then Mousasi. And none of them were like, I won't say blowout losses. And that, a couple things go his way, he wins all 3 of those fights. It's kind of the same thing here. A couple things go his way, he wins at least 2 out of 3 of those. So that's kind of the difficult part, is he takes such a big slide when 2 of those fights of his 3 that he's lost were really competitive.
Yeah, it's crazy because it seems like not too long ago we were talking to him being tops of the division, and now you have to struggle to make the case for top 10.
Yeah, that's the issue. And you don't want to fall into that gatekeeper status of 185. It's just too tough. You don't want to, have the name and be unable to defend it, and guys can make a living beating you up. You do not need that, because so much talent, as you said, at 185, you don't want to be that guy. You're either in title contention or there's not a lot of room for you here.
All right, well, main event, we're going to talk about that guy. Davis Figueiredo gets, a huge win. One of the most overwhelmingly dominant performances I think we've seen in a long time. Any doubts of the prior fight are now soundly in the past. And I hate to say this because Benavidez is a great fighter. I know one of the most respected and beloved fighters in the entire roster, but you just got to call it the way it is. He did not look like a title contender in there in every sense of the word. And I think, to me, what's been lacking from the conversation, since we've said on this a couple days now, is when are we going to start talking about, DJ's records here? I mean, and Figueiredo kind of cementing himself as the new GOAT. I mean, right now, if you look at the stats, and I'm not a big UFC stats guy, but tied her first with finishes, knockdowns, takedown accuracy, significant strikes landed. I mean, those are big numbers. We didn't think anyone was going to touch DJ. And now you start to see, is he going to continue to fight within the division? Is he going to look for these super fights, which I hope he doesn't. But, you know, we haven't heard a whole lot of his call out from Henry, but I mean, this could really be somebody's legacy going past somebody we never thought was even going to get close to being eclipsed. And right now, I don't even see anybody in the same ballpark. There's no threat. Like, that's the crazy part about all this.
That's the problem to me, is that when you talk about, oh, is 125 back? Well, a great champion's back, but they had that before. They had that with DJ. They had it with Henry Cejudo, and now it's Deiveson Figueiredo. If Joseph Benavidez really is number 2, that's a hell of a gap. That is a hell of a gulf between the champion and the number 2 guy in the division. That is a hell of a gulf, because he whooped his ass that entire round, knocked him down 3 times, almost finished him, half a dozen times with the rear naked before he got it. There was no comparison in terms of skill level. Power, there was no comparison. Speed, there was no comparison. Range, there was no comparison. The problem is building up 125. Yay, you have a dominant champion. Great. You already had one of those. And that wasn't enough to save the division in a lot of people's eyes, right? People were calling for an end to 125 while DJ's, has defense after defense after defense, doing stuff nobody else does. Suplexing guys into arm bars. That was your champion, and that wasn't enough. So my question is having a dominant champion good? Is Deiveson Figueiredo being so much better than everybody else? Is that a good thing? Or will that just make people go, God, I can't wait to see him at 35? Or, will Cody Garbrandt go down to 25? When you talk about the champ way more than you talk about the division, there's a problem there. Because right now, I think Deiveson Figueiredo is right now heads and tails above everybody at 125.
Yeah. I mean, what do you do with matchmaking? I mean, the only thing that kind of makes sense is, and this is almost laughable, you take his one loss against Jussier Formiga and you rematch them. Formiga's coming on 3 straight losses. So how are you going to push him to a title fight? But that's the only matchup that really makes sense, because like you said, everything else is just cut and dry, case closed. And it's almost like, I don't want to say we didn't appreciate Demetrius Johnson while he was here, because I did. I really kind of basked in that history in the moment. I'm honored that I got to go see the guy fight. I was fully aware of the context of what was happening. But, I mean, again, those are things I never thought were going to get surpassed. And, I mean, I don't think that he ever looked as dominant in performances as what we're seeing now. And he was dominant in performances.
The only thing missing, or the only thing that you would say, man, DJ didn't really have that. He was technical and all these things. This was vicious. There was a viciousness to this fight that you didn't always see from DJ. Out technique guys and these slick submissions, and this wasn't beautiful. It was a great performance. I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm saying a lot of people online, maybe it's because Joseph Benavidez is so popular or whatever, people like him. A lot of people said, oh, that was tough to watch. That was tough to watch. Did you ever get that from a DJ fight?
No. And I mean,
he had class people, you know what I'm saying? But this was almost like a beat down, like, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, afterwards, DJ would smile, wave, bring in the family, stream video games online, happy-go-lucky guy. Yeah, this is not what we're seeing now. We're seeing a guy that comes in and is just ruthless from bell to bell and does not seemingly have anything other than a kill switch. And for all the hype that went into this rematch, for it to go like that, I can't even think of a fight that went so well. Maybe back to Mir and Lesnar, when they were having the rematch and you were kind of dreaming up scenarios of how Frank Mir could pull it off again, and you got that brutal finish. I mean, that was the only thing that I could immediately think of came close when it comes to where this is.
Here's what I'll say about this. It was one of the most brutal title performances I've ever seen. It was one of the most one-sided ones. There have been longer beatdowns. Kane Jr. Dos Santos twice, okay? We've had shorter fights, right? But a short fight can be a fluke. Jose Aldo, Conor McGregor, does Conor really catch him 9 times out of 10 with that hook? Frank Shamrock, Kevin Jackson, do you really double leg right into an armbar? Not that often, okay? There have been shorter title performances. This was just long enough that we don't have any doubt who was better. But it was short enough that it was a one-sided ass kicking. Usually you don't see that combination.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we want to see. We want the fight that doesn't lead to a conversation. We normally get them, but we normally don't get them. When we see them, I mean, what do you say, right? It's other than we can't say any clearer what took place. I mean, you almost feel bad talking about it. You almost feel like you're disrespecting Joseph Benavidez talking about it because it was so one-sided. And I guess, hey, that's the way some of these things should go.
But the better man won. And no one can deny that. So that's the good thing. The best 125-pounder in the world has the belt right now.
Not a bad problem to have unless you're an opponent. So with that said, we appreciate you guys checking this out, and we will be back very shortly with more commentary.